Here's a question that will expose everything wrong with how you trade. Why is it easier to hold a losing trade than a winning one? Think about it. You'll watch a position bleed for days, weeks even, telling yourself it'll come back. You'll add to it, average down, give it room to breathe, but put you in a winner and you can't last 48 hours before you're taking profit, terrified it'll reverse. You can tolerate massive pain, but you can't tolerate pleasure. You can sit through loss, but you panic during gain. That inversion, that backwards wiring, is why most traders never build real wealth. They're comfortable with suffering and terrified of winning. Learning to sit tight isn't about discipline. It's about rewiring your nervous system's relationship with success. I know that sounds dramatic, but I need you to really sit with that question for a moment. Why can you hold a loser for 2 weeks, but you can't hold a winner for 2 days? What does that tell you about how you're actually wired? Because the answer to that question is the key to everything we're going to talk about in this video. You've been taught that good trading means taking profits when you have them. Cut your losses short. Let your winners run. It sounds perfect, doesn't it? But nobody tells you that the second part, letting winners run, requires you to violate your deepest survival instincts. Nobody tells you that sitting in profit feels like sitting in danger. Nobody tells you that your body will scream at you to exit, to protect what you have, to take the money and run before the market takes it back. This video reveals why sitting tight is the hardest skill in trading and the most valuable. Not be patient advice, not some motivational speech about discipline. This is a genuine psychological and somatic understanding of what happens in your body when you're winning and why you sabotage yourself. And here's the myth I need to bust right away. Exiting winners early isn't risk management, it's fear management, and it's bankrupting you. The reframe I want to offer you is this. Your inability to sit tight isn't a discipline problem, it's a nervous system problem. You've been conditioned, probably since childhood, to associate having something good with being about to lose something good. So the moment you're winning, your body goes into protection mode. And protection mode in trading means exit. Lock it in. Take it off the table before it disappears. This video is going to teach you how to rewire that association at the body level. And if you've ever closed a trade only to watch it run another 50%, another 100%, this is going to explain exactly why that keeps happening and show you how to stop. Let me tell you about a trader. I'm going to call him David. David had spent 3 years developing a system. He'd back-tested it, forward-tested it, the whole process. His edge was real. His win rate was solid, around 60%. His risk to reward was good, targeting 3 to 1 on every trade. On paper, David should have been profitable, very profitable. But he wasn't. He was barely breaking even, and when I looked at his trading journal, I found the problem immediately. David was closing every winner within 48 hours, every single one. He had a rule written right there in his plan, let it run to target. But he broke that rule every time. And here's what was fascinating. It wasn't out of fear of loss. He wasn't thinking, oh no, this trade's about to reverse and I'll lose money. It was something else. It was a fear of watching the gain disappear. Do you see the difference? He wasn't afraid of losing his risk capital. He was afraid of having profit and then watching it evaporate. That felt unbearable to him. So I started asking David about his life, about his childhood, and the pattern became clear. David grew up in a home where good things were always taken away. I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about this subtle, consistent pattern. He'd get excited about a birthday present, and then his mother would return it because they couldn't afford it. His father would promise a trip to the amusement park, and then cancel it last minute because something came up. There were these moments of joy, these moments of having something good, and they were always followed by disappointment, by loss, by that sinking feeling of, it's gone. And David's nervous system learned something from that. It learned that if something good happens, you need to protect it immediately or it'll be stolen. You need to lock it in, secure it, take it off the table before life takes it from you. That's not a conscious thought. That's wiring. That's a survival strategy that made sense when he was 7 years old and had no control over his environment. But now, as an adult trader, that same strategy was destroying his account. Because here's the truth. We don't exit winners because we're undisciplined. We don't exit winners because we don't know better. We exit them because we're protecting ourselves from a pain we learned when we were young. The pain of loss after hope. The pain of having something and then watching it disappear. And that pain is so deep, so primal, that we'll sacrifice actual wealth to avoid feeling it. Once David understood this, once he could see that his hand moving toward the exit button wasn't about the trade at all. It was about a 7-year-old boy trying to protect his birthday present. Everything changed, not overnight. This isn't magic. But he could start to separate the past from the present. He could feel the urge to exit and recognize it as an old pattern, not as market wisdom. Now, let me give you another way to think about this. Imagine a farmer who plants an apple tree. First year, it's just a tiny sprout. It's vulnerable. It needs constant attention. The farmer waters it every day, protects it from frost, worries over it. And that makes sense, right? The tree is fragile. Second year, it's a small tree now. And one day, the farmer sees blossoms. These tiny white flowers, the first sign of fruit. And something shifts in him. He starts getting nervous. What if the wind knocks them off? What if a late frost kills them? What if birds eat them? And here's where it gets interesting. The farmer is tempted to pick the blossoms early, just to have something, just to lock in the fact that the tree produced something. He knows intellectually that if he picks the blossoms, there won't be any apples. But the urge is there anyway. The urge to protect, to secure, to make sure he doesn't lose what he has. But the farmer doesn't pick them. He sits tight. He lets the tree do what trees do. He tolerates the discomfort of having something precious and vulnerable and not controlling it. And third year, full harvest, dozens of apples, abundance he could never have locked in early, abundance that only existed because he learned to sit tight. Your winning trades are trees. You plant them with your entry. You water them by not interfering, by not moving your stop-loss to break even too early, by not taking partial profits at the first sign of gain. And then you wait. You sit tight. You let the market do what it wants to do when it's moving in your favor. But most traders, they're picking blossoms. They're taking that 5% gain, that 10% gain, and they're telling themselves they locked in profit. But what they really did was guarantee they'll never taste the apple. They'll never see what that trade could have become if they'd just left it alone. And here's the question I want to ask you. What's really happening in your body when you're sitting in a winning trade? Why does doing nothing feel so dangerous? Because that's the key. That's what we need to understand if you're ever going to change this pattern. Here's the first thing you need to know. Profit doesn't feel like you think it does. Most traders, before they start trading real money, they imagine that being profitable feels good. It feels calm, confident, secure, like you've won, like you've figured it out. But the reality is that profit feels like anxiety. When you're up, when you're in a winning position, your brain shifts modes. It goes from seeking mode to protecting mode. And in protecting mode, everything feels like a threat. There's this concept in psychology called loss aversion. The pain of losing $1,000 is psychologically about twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining $1,000. So when you're sitting in a trade that's up $1,000, your brain isn't thinking about the 1,000 you might gain if it keeps running. It's thinking about the 1,000 you'll lose if it reverses. And that thought is twice as loud, twice as emotionally intense. So sitting in profit feels like sitting in danger. Your heart rate elevates. Your breathing gets shallow. You start checking the price every 30 seconds. You're not relaxed, you're terrified. And here's the paradox. The more you're winning, the more your nervous system treats it as a threat. Because now you have something to lose. Now the stakes are real. So that discomfort you feel when you're holding a winner, that's not a sign you should exit. That's a sign you're doing it right. That discomfort is what winning feels like before your nervous system adapts to it. And most traders never let their nervous system adapt because they keep exiting before the adaptation happens. Let me tell you what you're actually doing when you take profit early. You think you're taking profit. You think you're being smart, being responsible, being a good risk manager. But what you're actually doing is using an emotional stop loss. You know what a regular stop loss is. It's a predefined exit point to limit your loss if the trade goes against you. But you're also running invisible, emotional stop losses on your winners. And those stop losses aren't based on price. They're based on how you feel. The moment your discomfort exceeds your tolerance, you exit. It doesn't matter what the chart is doing. It doesn't matter what your system says. Your emotional stop loss gets hit, and you're out. And here's what that does. Every single time you take profit just to feel better, you're teaching your brain that relief comes from exiting. You're training yourself, like training a dog, to cut winners. You're reinforcing the exact pattern that's keeping you from building wealth. The reframe here is simple but profound. Sitting tight means increasing your tolerance for the discomfort of success, not your tolerance for risk, not your tolerance for loss, your tolerance for having something good and not immediately protecting it. That's the skill. And it's a trainable skill, but first you have to recognize what you're actually training. Now let's talk about the math, because the math doesn't lie. In any profitable trading system, and I mean any system that actually builds wealth over time, 80% of your gains come from 20% of your trades. Sometimes it's 90-10. Sometimes it's even more extreme than that. Those outlier trades, the ones that run 3 times your risk, 5 times, 10 times, those are your entire edge. Those are the trades that pay for all your losses, pay for all your small wins, and leave you with profit at the end of the year. If you cut them early, if you take that 2R winner when it could have been a 6R winner, you're eliminating the only trades that matter. You can have a 70% win rate and lose money if you cut your winners at 1R and hold your losers to -2R. The win rate doesn't save you. The math destroys you. Your job as a trader is not to make money on every trade. Your job is to stay in position when the market wants to give you big money, and the market will tell you when it wants to give you big money. It tells you by continuing to move in your direction, but you have to be there to receive it. You have to sit tight. Most traders have this backwards. They think their job is to be right, to predict, to control. But your job is much simpler and much harder. Your job is to not interfere when you're winning. That's it. Let the market do what it's trying to do. And if that means sitting in discomfort for days, for weeks, then that's the price of admission to real wealth. Now, here's something crucial I need you to understand. Sitting tight is not an intellectual exercise. You cannot think your way into sitting tight. This is somatic. This is about your body. The urge to exit, when it shows up, it doesn't show up as a thought first. It shows up as sensation. You feel it as chest tightness, as shallow breathing, as this restless energy, this mental chatter that won't stop, as urgency, like you need to act right now or something bad will happen. And most traders mistake these sensations for intuition. They think their body is telling them something about the market, but it's not. Your body is telling you something about your nervous system. It's telling you that you're in protection mode, that you're uncomfortable, that you're outside your window of tolerance. These sensations aren't market signals. They're just your nervous system doing what it was designed to do, trying to keep you safe. The practice, and we'll get into this more in a minute, but the practice is learning to notice the sensation, name it, and stay anyway. Not override it, not fight it. Just recognize it for what it is and not let it dictate your trading decisions. It sounds simple. It's incredibly hard, because in that moment, when your chest is tight and your mind is screaming at you to exit, it feels like the most reasonable thing in the world to close the position. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you're being smart, but you're not. You're just being human. And being human, left unexamined, will bankrupt you in the markets. Let me tell you what you're really avoiding when you exit a winner early. You think you're avoiding loss. You think you're protecting profit. But that's not what's happening at the deepest level. What you're really avoiding is regret. Specifically, you're avoiding the feeling of, I had it and I lost it. That feeling, the feeling of watching a profit evaporate, feels unbearable. It feels worse than never having had the profit at all. So you exit early to guarantee you won't experience it. But here's the cost. You trade potential wealth for emotional comfort. You trade the possibility of a 10R winner for the certainty of a 1R winner. And you tell yourself you're being responsible. But what you're actually doing is managing your emotions at the expense of your account. Here's the wisdom, and this is hard to hear. Regret is part of trading. You're going to feel it whether you exit early and watch the trade run without you, or whether you hold and watch it retrace and give back some profit. Regret is unavoidable, but one path builds wealth and one doesn't. One path trains you to hold winners and one trains you to cut them. So the question isn't, how do I avoid regret? The question is, which regret am I willing to feel? The regret of missing out on potential, or the regret of giving back some gains? Because you're going to feel one of them. You get to choose which one. And here's something most traders never realize. The exit is the trade. Everyone obsesses over entries. Where do I buy? What's the setup? What indicator should I use? Which time frame? And I get it. Entries feel important. They feel like the moment of decision. But entries don't make you wealthy. A good entry with a bad exit leaves you with nothing. A mediocre entry with great exit management can make you a fortune. How you manage the trade after you enter, and specifically how long you hold your winners, that determines everything. That's where the profit is made or destroyed. Sitting tight isn't passive. It's not just waiting around hoping for the best. It's the most active, intentional part of trading. It's you consciously choosing not to interfere with a process that's working. It's you tolerating discomfort in service of a larger goal. That's not easy. That's not lazy. That's the hardest work there is. So let's talk about how you actually build this capacity, because knowing you should sit tight and being able to sit tight are two completely different things. And most trading education stops at the knowing part, which is why it doesn't work. First, practice. I want you to open a small winning position. If you're not ready to do this with real money, use a demo account. The point is to have a position that's in profit. And then I want you to set a timer for 10 minutes. And your only job is two things. Don't exit and write down every sensation that arises. You're creating what I call a sensation log. So you're sitting there watching this position. And within the first 2 minutes, you're going to have the urge to check the price. Write it down. Urge to check price, 2 minutes in. 5-minute mark, you feel tightness in your chest. Write it down. 7 minutes, there's a mental story. It's saying, take the profit before it disappears. Write that down. You're not trying to fight these sensations. You're not trying to make them go away. You're documenting them. You're making the invisible visible. And what you'll discover over time is that these sensations are predictable. They're repetitive. They follow a pattern, and they're not dangerous. The feeling of discomfort doesn't mean something bad is about to happen in the market. It just means you're feeling discomfort. And when you can separate the feeling from the meaning you've attached to it, the feeling loses its power. You can feel the urge to exit and not exit. That's freedom. Second practice. If sitting tight feels completely impossible, if the idea of holding a full position through to target makes you want to quit trading entirely, then start with what I call scaling exits. This is training wheels. This isn't the ideal long-term strategy, but it's a bridge. Here's how it works. You exit 1/3 of your position at your first target. That relieves the pressure. That gives your nervous system some relief. But then you let 2/3 run to a much larger target, and there are no exceptions on that 2/3. What you're doing is teaching your nervous system that you can hold through discomfort and nothing bad happens. You're building evidence. You're showing yourself, look, I felt the urge to exit at 1R, but I held 2/3 of the position and it went to 3R and I'm fine. I'm more than fine. I made more money because I sat tight. And over time, you reduce that first exit. You go from 1/3 to 1/4, then to 1/5, then eventually you eliminate it entirely. But you can't skip steps. You can't white-knuckle your way from zero capacity to full capacity. You build it gradually. Third practice. When you're in a winning trade and you feel that urge to exit rising, here's what I want you to do. Stop. Close the trading platform. You heard me right. Close it. And then sit for 2 minutes with your eyes closed. This is a mini meditation, but it's not about relaxation. It's about presence. Feel the sensations in your body without trying to change them. Notice where the urge lives. Is it in your throat, your chest, your stomach? Just notice it. And while you're noticing it, repeat this to yourself. This discomfort is not danger. This is what winning feels like. This discomfort is not danger. This is what winning feels like. You're rewiring the association. You're teaching your nervous system that profit, discomfort, and threat are not the same thing. And then, after 2 minutes, you make your decision. You either stay in the trade or you exit. But you make the decision from a grounded place, not from a reactive place. And I promise you, 70% of the time, the urge will pass. It'll dissolve. And you'll stay in the trade and you'll be fine. Fourth practice. This one's really powerful. Before you enter a trade, write a letter to yourself from 3 weeks in the future. Sounds weird, I know. But stay with me. The letter says something like this. Dear Mark, or dear whatever your name is, you're going to want to exit this trade early. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel the urge to take profit at 1R. But this is me from the future telling you, sit tight. The trade hit the target. You made 4R, but only because you didn't exit at 1R like you wanted to. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Signed, Future You. And then, when you're in the trade and that urge hits, you read the letter. You're borrowing conviction from a version of yourself that's already lived through it. You're reminding yourself that the discomfort is temporary and the reward is real. It sounds simple, maybe even silly, but it works. Because in that moment of peak discomfort, you need something stronger than your fear. And a message from your future self, a self that succeeded because you sat tight. That can be enough. Fifth practice. Most traders check their positions obsessively. They're refreshing the platform every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes, sometimes every 30 seconds. And every time you check, you're re-triggering the exit urge. You're putting yourself back in that uncomfortable state. So here's the new rule. You only check your position twice per day, morning and evening. That's it. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Mark, what if something happens? What if there's news? What if the trade moves against me? Use alerts. Use time-based stop as trailing stops if your system calls for it. But stop manually monitoring, because the less you watch, the less you'll interfere. The market doesn't need your supervision to make you money. In fact, your supervision is usually what prevents it from making you money. So, let it run. Check in the morning, check in the evening, and in between, Go live your life. The mantra here is simple. The market doesn't need my supervision to make me money. Now let me bring all of this together because I want to make sure you walk away from this video with something real, something that changes how you see yourself and your trading. Learning to sit tight isn't about being patient in some abstract, noble sense. It's not about being disciplined like you're some kind of machine. It's about training your nervous system to tolerate the specific discomfort of having something good and not immediately protecting it. It's about understanding that your urge to exit winners early isn't wisdom. It's not intuition. It's trauma. It's a protection mechanism that was designed for a different kind of threat, and it's bankrupting you in the market. You've been taught that taking profit is responsible, that it's risk management, that a profit is only real once you've closed the position. But that's a lie. That's fear dressed up as prudence. The truth is that big winners, the trades that run multiples of your risk, those are the only trades that create wealth. And you can't access them if you keep cutting your plants while they're still sprouting. You can't pick the blossoms and expect apples. That's not how it works. The tree doesn't need you to pick its blossoms. It needs you to water it and leave it alone. Your winning trades don't need your intervention. They don't need you checking on them every 5 minutes. They don't need you taking partial profits. They need your absence. They need you to sit tight while your body screams at you to move. That's the entire skill. Everything else is just set up. And here's what I want you to remember. You're not weak because you struggle to hold winners. You're not undisciplined because you take profit early. You're human. And you're carrying patterns, old patterns from childhood, from past experiences, patterns that were designed to protect you from a pain that isn't actually present in this moment. The pain of, I had something good and it was taken away. That pain lives in your past. It doesn't live in your trades. But your nervous system doesn't know the difference. So it keeps trying to protect you from something that isn't there. Every time you sit tight through discomfort, you're not just making money. You're doing something much more important. You're healing that pattern. You're teaching yourself a new truth. That you can have something good and it won't be stolen. That you can let abundance grow without collapsing into protection mode. That you deserve to hold on long enough to see what's actually possible. That's not just trading psychology. That's life psychology. That's healing. Sitting tight is not about controlling the market. The market cannot be controlled. Sitting tight is about trusting yourself. Trusting that you can handle a retrace if it comes. Trusting that you can survive regret if you feel it. Trusting that your system, your edge, your process is more reliable than your fear. And that trust doesn't come from confidence. It comes from evidence. It comes from sitting tight once, twice, 10 times and watching what happens. Watching the trade run. Watching your account grow. Watching your capacity expand. You build that trust one trade at a time, one uncomfortable moment at a time, one decision to stay when you wanted to exit. And eventually, sitting tight stops being this heroic effort. It becomes your default. It becomes what you do because it's what you do. Not because you're forcing yourself, because you've rewired the pattern. So, if this landed for you, if you felt that urge to exit early, and now you understand where it comes from, I want you to do something. Leave a comment. Tell me about a time you closed a winner too soon and watched it run without you. Not to beat yourself up, not to feel shame, but to witness it, to see the pattern clearly. Because once you see it, once you really see it, it starts to lose its grip. It stops being this invisible force controlling you and becomes just a pattern, just something you do. And if it's just something you do, then it's something you can choose not to do. And if you want more of this kind of work, the kind that goes beneath strategy and indicators into the psychological roots of why we trade the way we do, subscribe. Because I'm not here to teach you chart patterns. I'm not here to give you some magic indicator. I'm here to help you understand yourself in a way that makes profitable trading possible. And that's a different conversation than most people are having. but it's the only conversation that matters. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing to look at this stuff, at the uncomfortable stuff, at the parts of yourself that you'd rather ignore. That takes courage. And remember this: the market rewards the people who can sit still while everyone else is moving. Learn to sit tight. Your profits depend on it. But more than that, your relationship with your own capacity for success depends on it. You're allowed to win big. You're allowed to have abundance. You're allowed to hold something good without it being taken away. You just have to stay in your seat long enough to let it happen. That's all. Just stay in your seat.